I am here to argue that Season 4 of Stranger Things is not great. I have seen a lot of praise online, crediting the Duffer Brothers for course correcting after a disappointing second and third season. While I agree there has been an improvement over those seasons, Stranger Things 4 does not deserve the praise it is currently receiving online. Most people would agree that Season 1 of the show is fantastic, whose heights have yet to be reached since. I will be going through each episode to highlight the issues with the writing. I will also point out anything I find that I think works well within the show. I am not here to say that it's all bad or that you can't enjoy it. My criticisms do not invalidate how it made you feel. I just think that we should hold our media accountable and point to places that can be improved upon so we all ultimately can have better writing in our stories. I believe this in turn will grant us the ability to notice when a show is truly worth talking about and sharing online. Episode 1 starts well with an intro sequence that tells us about the Papa character. A character we've been introduced to before, one which has been involved in the experiments that have created the telekinetic children like our main hero, 11. This works well to show us some of his traits without explicitly telling us. It leads us to a time before the initial first season, with our usual protagonist having apparently committed something abhorrent. So far so good. This is a strong opening to the season that sets up what one of our conflicts will be within the season. Is 11 actually a much worse person than the girl we've come to know so well? The one that has saved the world about 3 times now. There is seemingly also a return to a more horror-focused side to the show. As many feel, myself included, needless comedy and action are part of what made the aforementioned second and third seasons so disappointing. After the credits, which still have great music, we cut to Elle making a visual aid.
Which is funny because the show has given me visual aid.
She now has a more toned down appearance, closer to that of Joyce, which could be to show how she is more connected with her and is starting to feel like part of the Byers family. However, it makes me wonder if the style change is here to sell an otherwise unbelievable storyline that may happen further along. The family now live in California, away from the apparent nexus of evil that is Hawkins. Why anyone would choose to live in Hawkins after all the various shenanigans of the past few years is beyond me, but then people choose to live in crazy places in real life all the time, so I guess it's not a mark against the show. After a brief catch-up and reintroduction to the family, we are introduced to new character Argyle. His characterization is representative of many of the problems I have with the show this season. A cheap, walking, comic relief character.
Hold on to your butts, brochachos.
Elle is in school, and we have the old, "Oh, thought you were waving at me. No, it's for the person behind me. Oh." I really hate this as a way to show someone's position within a social group, as not only is it overused, but why do our characters always wave back? Surely if you know this person, then the wave is warranted, but why the hell would you wave back at someone who you don't already have a relationship with? If you're not already friendly with them, then you wouldn't assume it's for you. We are then introduced to Mike, Nancy, and their parents. Mike is still in Hawkins, and his relationship with Elle seems to have boiled down to letters alone. I guess they didn't hear about phones yet by 1986. Next up is Dustin, using his tech girlfriend to cheat in his grades, which she obliges despite her apparent fear of eternal damnation. I guess your first crush is worth it, though. Then we have Steve and Robin. They're friends. It's fine. Jesus. Then we're on to Max. She's sad about the death of her brother. Also, she liked music. Remember that for later. We are now at a school basketball event to introduce another character, a sort of secondary villain, Jason. While he name drops some of the people who have died over the previous season, unfortunately, apart from Hopper and maybe Billy, we just don't care. I suppose our characters might, but we're not them, so it's hard to have any emotion for the loss of Melissa. We see his girlfriend Chrissy, who will kick off the main story. By this stage, the show is suffering for the seasons that came before it. The pacing is off because we spend the majority of the first episode, which is an hour and 13 minutes long, catching up with our characters and re-establishing them before we can have a plot. The boys once again are being split up. Dustin and Mike want to play Dungeons and Dragons, and Lucas wants to play basketball. Friends must have the exact same hobbies, otherwise what's the point? This is literally the plot and drama of the Bratz movie. So Joyce gets a package in the mail, and boy, I do hope she goes on a quirky, fun-filled adventure with a sidekick this season. This is one of the characters I feel has suffered the most with the longevity of the show. Winona Ryder was perfectly cast in the first season as the distraught mother who would stop at nothing to get her child back. It didn't matter how much everyone else pushed back against her or tried to make her feel crazy, she was going to use every ounce of her being to bring her son back. This is admirable, inspiring, and we root for her without exception. By now, she should have very little to do with the plot, but we have her contracted and she is one of the more famous actors on the show, so yay, quirky adventures and comic relief. So Elle gets bullied in school. This is the reason for the frumpy look to the character. Look at a comparison between her in Season 3 and Season 4. One is slightly more believable to be the victim of bullying. But big cheers for not being a snitch. Respect. We are back with Max, listening to the song that has swept the Western world. 1985's Running Up the Hill by Kate Bush. This song is great. Go listen to it. Honestly, without this song, I doubt I'd see half the praise for the show this season. Why would Max keep her headphones on while already sitting down at the counselor's desk? A bit rude. Did you lose your brother or your manners?
Sorry.
Why wouldn't she tell her therapist about her dreams? She may be able to help. This comes up later with a scene that gives us our first glimpse at some of the spooks to come. Also, Lucas, her brother died. Maybe give her some space. So then Max runs into our plot girl, Chrissy, in the bathroom, and we have the problem that I hinted at earlier. This happens quite a bit in this show and many others. It's lazy writing that exists to allow the plot to happen. How come people hide symptoms, especially severe mental hallucinations, from medical professionals? If I'm in a toilet and the entire place starts to shake, and I'm pretty sure that earthquakes don't have monster feet, then you bet your arse I'm immediately seeking medical intervention. Obviously, there's something very wrong, and it's stupid to think that an otherwise healthy, perfectly cognizant character would just ignore something so horrific and traumatizing. Yeah, it disappeared, no worries. Okay, so then we have Eddie, a Dungeons & Dragons playing metalhead who's been kept back a few times. He's fine. A nice leader for the young boys to look up to with his own ambitions of graduation, if a little bit over the top. Yay, sidekick time. Honestly, pretty much every scene with these two makes me want a Demogorgon to come and flay my mind. With the more serious tone that the show is apparently going for, watching a quirky grown man strip, but oh, we almost see his pee-pee, lol, it's a bit jarring. We joke. Nancy and Jonathan are going to break up this season. And honestly, it's about damn time. It's shocking that they're a couple in real life as they have zero chemistry in this show. Now, while I agree with this mix-up of character relationships, the will they, won't they between Nancy and Steve for the rest of the season is tiresome and leads us on to the next biggest issue I have. The drama. The drama in a show should come from the characters, but it is usually better when those character interactions are based upon events within the story. When writers want characters to end up together but don't have a natural way to do it, they pull this Disney teen show nonsense. At times this show feels like iCarly or Glee but with gore. So once again, Chrissy has a hallucination, and rather than asking for help, she buys drugs. Nice. This gives her a reason to go and meet Eddie. Back to Elle, and by now I've basically forgotten what show I'm watching. The pacing is such that I believe it is truly meant for a modern audience. Not someone like me who'll scrutinize the writing decisions and execution, but someone who wants to scroll TikTok and glance up at their TV every so often. It's just a collection of scenes. Some quirky, some scary, with enough variety, just like the feed you're scrolling through. More quirk, Hopper's alive, we already know, moving on. So, it's game time, and here the writers tried something that I feel was to the detriment of the show rather than something that was a benefit. When writing a story, a way to get an audience invested in a moment is to have our heroes or main characters have to achieve a goal, whether it be winning a basketball game or slaying the final boss in a D&D campaign. If we have our heroes just win, that's boring. So to gain investment, we have them have a low point where you think they might actually lose, only to be triumphant at the last possible second. The basketball game and D&D campaign are simultaneous to each other, with the exact same writing convention playing out. This has been done simply to parallel them, so we know that what Dustin and Mike are into is just as worthy as what Lucas is into, and it shows where our allegiances lie before the plot actually kicks off. But all this shows me is that you're using cheap writing tricks to get me invested, and by repeating them, it just makes it more obvious that it is a writing trick. It's right by numbers. Chrissy goes to Eddie's house to get the good shit, as he would only carry a federal crime's worth of weed on his person. He does have to keep himself safe, you know. He also happens to live right next to our favourite music lover, Max. It's pretty contrived that they would go out to the woods to set up a drug buy without specifying what type, only to bring them back to a place where a main character can essentially witness the events that are to come. This does, however, lead to my favourite bit of the episode. It's mildly shocking, gory, and the effects are solid. Also, something about bones cracking and eyes bursting is just much harder hitting than any blood to me. Yum. Unfortunately, my mind is cast back to Quirky Karate Naked Man and Argyle Bong Boy, and the tone is just off. You can absolutely have differing tones when writing, provided they're complementing, and often it's actually a great way to get the drama or horror to hit even harder. But this is too much. This reminds me of The Last Jedi, where everything is super serious and then, whoop, joke time, baby, bye-bye lightsaber. Inside of Chrissy's head, before her demise, we are introduced to the main villain, Vecna. While I like the reveal and consequence of the scene, he's about as generic a villain as I can imagine.
He even has the cliched voice that is just more than one recording with one of the deliveries pitch shifted an octave lower.
I feel something more charming or alluring would do better than your standard demon of the week. While it is true to say that the show was in desperate need of a recognizable villain, going with generic gooey skeleton man was not pushing the boat out far enough to be worth the significant attention it's received. While I move on to other episodes, please note that this is not some Disney-produced disaster. It's not incomprehensible and every character is not a blatant contradiction. It's an okay show that maybe appears better amongst a sea of garbage, but compared to Season 1, it falls far short of what can be achieved within this world. See you for Episode 2.